I'd like to call to order the Highland Park Board of Education hybrid voting meeting Tuesday, May 28th, 6 p.m. The New Jersey Open Public Meetings Act was enacted to ensure the right of the public to have advance notice of and to attend the meetings of public bodies at which any business may affect their interest is discussed or acted upon. In compliance with the Open Public Meetings Act, the Highland Park Board of Education has caused notice of this meeting, setting forth the time, date, and location to be submitted for publication to the Home News Tribune and Star Ledger and posted on the board's website at least 48 hours in advance of this meeting. Members of the public who wish to address the board will be given the opportunity to do so before the board adjourns for the evening. Roll call, please.
Dr. Beatty, Ms. Cassell Dunn,
Here.
Dr. Coleman, Dr. Pixley,
Here.
Ms. Bruce, Dr. Schoolman,
Here.
Ms. Stanio,
Here.
Ms. Vardaman,
Here.
Ms. Voorhees.
Here. We will now recess to executive session. Be it resolved pursuant to the Sunshine Act, NJSA 10:4-12 and 13. The Highland Park Board of Education will now meet in closed session to discuss personnel, HIBs, student discipline, and to consult with our attorney. These exemptions are permitted to be discussed in closed session in accordance with NJSA 10:4-13. Information regarding the board's closed session discussion will be disclosed to the public as soon as the need for confidentiality no longer exists. I move that we recess to executive session.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I'm going to move that we reconvene to regular session. Roll call.
Dr. Beatty, Ms. Cassell Dunn,
Here.
Here.
that was Dr. Beatty, correct?
Correct.
Dr. Coleman,
Here.
Dr. Pixley,
Here.
Ms. Bruce,
Here.
Dr. Schoolman,
Here.
Ms. Stanio,
Here.
Ms. Vardaman,
Here.
Ms. Voorhees.
Here. Stand for the pledge.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Our communications last month included emails about a cell phone policy, after school issues, voting no on bus contracts, cell phone bans, Carla Draper, letter of recommendations, aftercare issues, after school program, 2 more about Carla Draper, and actually 3. We're now moved to the approval of minutes. I move we approve the minutes for the hybrid voting meeting on May 13th, 2024. Second.
Dr. Beatty,
Yes.
Ms. Cassell Dunn,
Yes.
Dr. Coleman, Dr. Pixley,
Yes.
Ms. Bruce,
Yes.
Dr. Schoolman,
Yes.
Ms. Stanio,
Yes.
Ms. Vardaman,
Yes.
Ms. Voorhees.
Yes. We usually have our student representative report, but our students are getting awards tonight. So congratulations to them. And we are going to move on to our superintendent's report.
Good evening.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you. I have 2 things I'd like to present in Spotlight. The first is I'd like to call Hannah Pavlak up to the podium. She will be representing the high school for this evening's Student Spotlight coming out of the high school.
Hello. Well, thank you so much for having us. So I'd like to introduce Isaiah. Isaiah Castillo is a student in the Highland Park High School GLOW Growth and Learning Outside Walls program who is currently participating in the 12+ work-based experience. He currently works at a veterinarian's office, a pet store, and our in-house GLOW Run cafe, Cup of Glow. Isaiah moved here when he was a freshman, and since then, we have seen remarkable growth in his vocational performance, independence, and personal development. Isaiah has identified a focus on the agricultural, food, and natural resources career cluster with a specialization in animals. During the school year, he takes care of Glow's emotional support guinea pigs, which he refers to as his sons, and even gives them medical attention when needed. He's notorious for his self-made commercials featured on Cup of Glow's Instagram and his creative marketing strategies for Glow's various fundraisers. He has broadened his comfort zone and has attended various Glow shows this year, so you may see him cheering loudly at a sporting event or belting out Lincoln Park during karaoke. This year, Isaiah competed at DECA's state competition in Atlantic City and gave a presentation on Cup of Glow alongside two of his classmates. Although he was nervous, he was 100% authentically himself and did a fantastic job. Overall, this year, Isaiah has put a smile on the faces of everyone he meets and strives to do his best work. We are incredibly proud of him.
First of all, I would like to say thank you. I am so proud of myself. I have never worked this hard when I was in the school. I do love my sons. This goes out to Miss Pollock, my nephews, my guinea pigs. I just love being here. I thank all of you. Thank you.
so much, Isaiah.
Hi. Thank you. We're so proud of you. And you're more than welcome to stay for the continuation of the program, although I know that Senior Awards is tonight. So if you need to go over there to Senior Awards, please feel free to do so. Next, I have a presentation from Beth Maroney, author of The Bridge to Victory. So I'd like to invite Beth to come up to the podium. When I saw the email with this information, I was completely floored and moved. When I looked at the website, I was even more floored and moved. And so we're really happy to have you here tonight and very excited about the work that you did and the presentation to the school library. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Superintendent Susko. So, esteemed Board of Ed members, and I know you're esteemed because I was a Board of Ed member in Edison for 7 years. So I know about being esteemed. We had the Bush firm as our legal firm, and I saw Jonathan yesterday. We marched in the Metuchen Parade together. Anyway, and so esteemed Board of Education, Superintendent, guests, and most of all, young Isaiah, incredible. Isaiah is the kind of young man my dad would have been so proud of. So I'm here to tell you about the Bridge to Victory. This is the Bridge to Victory. Now, this was supposed to be my Oprah moment when all of you were going to look under your chairs and receive a copy of the Bridge to Victory. But unfortunately, the books didn't come. And the only one I have right now is my sample copy. I apologize. As soon as they come, Highland Park will be receiving several copies of the book for the school library. So now you're wondering, the Bridge to Victory, what's that about? My father was J. Howard Dackelman. He worked for the Highland Park school system for 47 years. He was renowned as a football, track, and basketball coach here in Highland Park. And by the way, I'm a 1967 Highland Park High School graduate. My brother Mitchell just came from delivering the J. Dackelman Award at the awards assembly and came in time to make my presentation. The Bridge to Victory took me 5 years and a lifetime to write. And it is a tribute to probably the greatest man I ever knew, J. Dackelman. The book is in 2 parts. And so I will explain a little bit to you about the title of the book. My father was a junior at Panzer College in 1941 when the Japanese attacked Pearl Harbor. And he was a phys ed major, and phys ed majors take all pre-med courses. So being a junior in college, of course, he wanted to graduate before going into the armed forces. So he got a group of his buddies together and they went to the office where they could, sign up to go into the service, a recruitment office. And they cut a deal that they would be permitted to go on a fast track summer program through the summer of 42, graduate in October of 42, and be in the Army by November of 42. And so that's what happened. He entered the United States Armed Forces. He was a private at first and did move up to being a corporal later in his career. He was with the 86th Pontoon Battalion of the 1st Army Corps of Engineers. Now, the kids, who went here, back in the 60s when I was in high school here, they didn't know that Jay had been in the armed forces because you didn't talk about it. A lot of the men of that generation, I'm sure you all know that many of the soldiers who returned from World War II didn't talk about their experiences. But in my interviewing former students, going back as early as 1944, I think, was the earliest former student that I talked to, told me that back in those days when Jay first came home from the war, he did talk about it and he did tell the students about it. But as time went on, that became further and further in the past and he didn't want to talk about it. At any rate, the 1st Army Corps of Engineers, their job was to build the bridges ahead of the infantry and the regular army. And so that all of the supplies could be sent over to Europe and moved into Belgium, France, and ultimately into Germany. They were extremely, extremely important group of soldiers. My father did serve as a combat medic. He served in 5 major campaigns, received medals for all 5 of the campaigns, including the D-Day invasion, the Battle of St. Lo, the Battle of the Bulge, which was in those days known as the Battle of St. Vith, the Battle of Remagen, which you may have seen, the famous movie, The Bridge at Remagen. He was there, and the final push into Germany. His unit also liberated 2 concentration camps, Nuremberg and, Nordhausen and Buchenwald. And those experiences definitely altered him. My favorite passage in the entire book is written about the Battle of the Bulge. And what is it like for a 21-year-old man at Christmas time in a blizzard, in a foxhole at 3 o'clock in the morning, wearing a summer uniform, not very warm, no blankets, weren't allowed to light fires. It's 3 o'clock in the morning, your teeth are chattering. What's a young man thinking? Am I going to get out of this alive? No, not Jay Dackelman. He's thinking football, because that's definitely what got him through the war. Just the love of sport. When he came home in November of 1945, it was very delayed coming home. The war was over in April, but they had to stay to monitor what was going on. He was stationed in Bavaria at the end of the war and had some pretty incredible and exciting experiences, which are all described in The Bridge to Victory. So part 1, bridges. They're building the bridges. They're moving to victory. Part 2 of the book starts in August of 1946, when Jay came here to Highland Park High School and met with Principal Alfred Maynard and the head football coach, Bus Lapine at the time, and was interviewed for a job and was, last minute offered the job. Now, his job in those days, when he was first hired, he traveled around the 3 elementary schools, which in Highland Park, when I went to school, there were 3 elementaries. It was Lafayette, Hamilton, and thank you. you know, that was the other side of town. I grew up on South Third Avenue. Anyway, so he was interviewed and offered the job. He had to rotate every day between the 3 elementaries. And then in the afternoons, he would come over to the high school and work as a guidance counselor, coach 3 sports, made $1,500 a year. No stipend for coaching. You just did it because you love to do it. When he met with Mr. Lapine and Dr. Maynard, they told him, well, you're going to be an assistant football coach and you're going to be an assistant basketball coach. And my dad said, well, what about baseball? I love baseball. I love the Yankees. I played baseball in college. And Bus said to him, no, you're going to coach track. And my father said, I don't know anything about track. I don't know anything about track. Well, in the spring of 1947, he coached his first track team, undefeated, won the state championship. 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th year, all won state championships. They didn't have a track. They had 2 hurdles. They didn't have any facilities. This whole area here was woods and mud. And so the students, that's how they practiced, on the mud. Every now and again, they would go down to Rutgers Stadium and use the Rutgers facilities, because my dad was smart enough to know to make friends with college coaches because he wanted his athletes to go to school and he needed those facilities. To make a very long story short, and I hope that you will read the book, the 2 things that Jay was best known for, and a lot of you say, oh, well, yeah, the football field is named after him. Yes. 2 things that really mattered to him. He wanted every kid to have an equal opportunity to succeed in life. It wasn't about athletes. It was about scholarship. It was about being a student. It was particularly important to him that his students of color better themselves by going to college. And he hammered on it, and he hammered on it, and he hammered on it. The other thing, I tell a story in the book that I'll share with you very briefly. My father's sister was 5 years younger than he was, and he was a beefy little boy. He never grew much taller than I am, but he was a beefy little boy, and he used to play football with his little sister. She was 5, he was 10. They'd play football on my grandmother's bed. The the foot holds at the bed, they were the goalposts. And my Aunt Carol, who was a tiny little thing, would scream, "Ma, Jay won't let me make touchdowns." But from very early on, Jay believed that women should have equal opportunity in athletics. And he fought for that from the very first day that he came here to coach. He took a young woman named Dottie Ayers to track meets with him back in the 1940s. I had the great pleasure of talking to Dottie's husband. And, the story is just incredible. He she wanted to go to Monmouth University to become a phys ed teacher. And Dad got her into Monmouth, but her parents would not let her go to college. So that was most unfortunate. Then back when I was a freshman, we had a young woman named Rosemarie Heldrich. She was a great runner also. And my dad, same thing, used to take her to all the boys' meets. She worked out with the boys' teams. And whenever they could get her into an exhibition run, she would, get an opportunity to run at a meet. He did arrange for her to run in Olympic trials in the late 60s. She ran for Montclair State, and she ended up being a track coach for the handicapped at Franklin High School until very recently. She retired quite late. So just a couple of little stories. So for his work in promoting all students going to college, concentration on underprivileged students and students of color, his work in making sure that women had an equal opportunity. And there's so many, many wonderful stories. If you read the book, you'll find out about them. He was in 1982 nominated as the National Athletic Director of the Year. Nobody in New Jersey had ever won this very prestigious honor. And when he went out to Texas for the award ceremony, he didn't know if he was going to win, but there were 6 other men who were nominated for the award. They were all 6'4", 6'5", big Stetson hats. And there in the middle was little Jay, and he won. He won. And Principal Austin Gums made the announcement the next morning that he had won. And he is, to this day, the only athletic director from New Jersey to ever have won that incredible award. And that is really saying something. So he was intensely proud of that. I just want to say that I owe thanks to so many, many wonderful people, a lot of alum, a lot of former people who taught in Highland Park, secretaries who worked in Highland Park, custodians who worked in Highland Park. He was fair to everybody. And to this day, the stories are just incredible. And it goes on and on and on. I'm very proud of the book. Like I said, 5 years in a lifetime to tell this story. I was very lucky with the sources that I had. My father started collecting newspaper articles in 1946, right through to his death in 1991. He took over 1,000 photographs during World War II. I had those, all the letters he wrote to my mother. So I was very, very lucky with the resources I had. I want to say special thanks to Joe Policastro, who is, as I say, my brother from another mother. He was always my dad's greatest protege, and I love Joe, and he was immensely helpful to me. So as soon as the books come, I will be here. Oh, and I want to say thanks to Principal Lassiter. Big loss for you guys. Big, big loss. He's a great guy. And thanks to Joyce Puccio for allowing me to come into the library to research through old albadomes. This was the journey of a lifetime. And thank you so much for letting me come and speak. Oh, The Bridge to Victory, available on Amazon. Thank you so much.
Okay. Thank you, Beth. Would you mind taking a picture with me and you in the book? Would you mind taking a picture holding up the book? Okay. Any comments or questions from the board? Okay.
No, thank you.
All right. That concludes my presentation.
All right, we're going to move on to public comment. The Highland Park Board of Education welcomes public participation and has reserved this time for your comments. Board policy number 0167 establish and regulates the right of the public to participate in public meetings. We are going to start with people present in person, and then we're going to move to people in our webinar. If you are in our webinar, please make sure that the name that's displayed in the webinar is a first and last name so that we know who to call on. Angelo does the selections for us and keeps track, so it would be very helpful if we had your names. This public comment is our 30-minute public comment with a 3-minute limit.
Hi, I'm Elizabeth Wild Greenberg, 60 North 7th Avenue. Most of you know me as Buffy. I'm the mom of a 5th grader at
I'm
Bartle.
sorry to interrupt. Could you just speak closer to the mic so that
Oh,
people
I'm
at home can
sorry.
hear you?
Yes, sorry about that. So tonight I'm here to present a letter to the Board of Education. It was signed by, I think, about 230 community members, including more than 35 current and former Irving staff members, asking you to vote no on Dr. Suska's recommendation to fire Ms. Carla from the Irving after-school program. I am quite nervous to stand up here because I have been kind of racking my brain to think of what can I say to persuade all of you to do the right thing, which I know is in your hearts to do. And I know is why you are all on the Board of Education, is to keep people like Ms. Carla in our district. I truly cannot think of someone who is more universally loved, who goes to the students who need the most help and makes them feel like they have a home. The idea that Dr. Susko wants to fire her from the after-school program is shocking, is appalling, is disgusting. And the fact is that I don't know, I don't know what each of you are thinking, but I know that you know that it is wrong. And I know that each of you has a vote, and you can vote no. And I was thinking about this, like, what do we tell our kids about standing up for the right thing, right? We tell them, do it, even if you might lose, even if you might be the only person standing up for them, you do it. You go up to that kid who no one's talking to, and you go up and you sit with them, right? It doesn't matter. You do what's right. And so I'm asking each of you to just do what's right and vote no, because you know that that is the right thing to do. And even if Dr. Suska finds some other way to push Ms. Carla out of this district, that is irrelevant to what your vote is tonight. This is on the agenda. You are asking to vote on it. No matter what you think the ultimate result might be, I'm asking you to vote your conscience. I'm asking you to do why you all came to the Board of Education, is to make sure that we have people like Ms. Carla in the district. I have a letter here which said all of that in a much better, less shaky way. Ms. Carla has meant a great deal to my family. I will just say personally, when my son was at Irving, this is before he was diagnosed with autism, before I knew anything about neurodiversity. Ms. Carla was the one who believed in him and who saw the best in him when his own teachers didn't. And she is truly what got him through Irving. He walked into school with her, and I would pick him up at after school. And my best memories of him at Irving are walking into after school and seeing him thriving and happy, and playing with Miri. I mean, I still have those photos. You know, those are just hands down. I truly, I can't think of someone in this district who I care for more, and who has done more for my son and for all the kids in Highland Park. So I don't know where I am on the 3 minutes. but
Yeah.
Sorry.
Sorry, we let
Um,
you go a little bit over, but thank you. Okay, anybody else in person for comment?
Good evening. My name is James Chelfin. Can you hear me clearly?
Can you
A
please
little
sign
bit
your name
closer.
to the paper so I could record it for the minutes, if you don't mind?
No, if you could just lift the mic up or speak a little bit closer to it.
Can you hear me clearly?
Yeah.
Thank you. Oh. As I mentioned, my name is James Chelfin. My daughter Eleanor has attended Irving for the past 2 years. In that time, I've observed Carla Draper to be compassionate and competent. My daughter hugs her every morning when I drop her off. And when she gets home, she tells me stories about what they did that day. Miss Carla suggests books for Eleanor to read and art projects for her to go through. And perhaps more importantly, she comforts Eleanor when she's overwhelmed, which happens because she's in first grade. I'm grateful that there's an adult that I respect and trust taking care of my child every day. My son, Robert, is going to enter Irving in the fall. He's going to be a kindergartner. And until these recent events, I was looking forward to him developing his own independent relationship with Miss Carla. Given my personal experience with her, I have to say learning that she was no longer going to be part of the after school program, I found that it was very, very surprising. I hope that whatever process is leading to a decision about this topic is pursued carefully and cautiously and judiciously. Given her long tenure and my personal experience with her, it's not a decision to be taken lightly. There's a saying that extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence. Personally, I find the idea that my children would be better off without Carla Draper in the after-school program an extraordinary claim. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Selma Bekri. I'm going to be reading because I'm a little emotional. My son is in kindergarten and he's in after care with Miss Carla. And the only reason he's in aftercare is because of Miss Carla. He's in special education. Sorry. And he struggled a lot the first weeks. And she was the only person who took the time and the efforts to comfort him and help him go through it. And now he loves after school. We were very surprised and deeply troubled that Miss Carla, the esteemed supervisor of the aftercare program, has been terminated from her position. This decision has been both shocking and disheartening, especially given her commendable dedication and the profound impact she has on our children, particularly those in special education. My son, who's part of the special education, has benefited immeasurably from Ms. Carla's support. She has been a pivotal figure of his daily school life, providing him with the emotional support and guidance he needs. Knowing that he could turn to Ms. Carla when in distress and when he's struggling in aftercare has been invaluable to his emotional well-being and also a huge peace of mind for us. We both work full-time and we couldn't imagine our son not being able to go to after school. Her dismissal without prior notice is disrupting his routine and will leave a void that will be nearly impossible to fill. Ms. Carla has dedicated her life to enhancing the aftercare program and making every child feel seen and welcomed. And she did so much for my son. I urge the board members to vote no to Ms. Carla's termination. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next in-person commenter.
Sign in and then. All right, thank you, board members. Over the weekend, I sent a letter.
Sorry, can you state your name? And
Sure,
place of
I'm so
residence?
sorry, I wrote it, but I didn't say my name. My name is Eric Goldman. I am a parent of 2 children who attend Irving Elementary. I'm here to talk about the after-school program. Over the weekend, I wrote a very detailed letter with concerns. I appreciate the other parents here who have defended the great staff we have. I would like to talk about the management of the program. When there is a problem with staff, you could just blame the staff, but it also makes sense to look up at the management. As I stated in my letter, I have 2 very simple expectations from the after-school program. Maybe some parents have more. I want to know my children are safe and accounted for, and I want accurate and timely communication from the program. I do not feel I am getting that. Earlier this year, I wrote a letter to the board about mistakes with, they just changed the way the pickup works. Unsafe. It was like that for many months with the pre-K, in the dark on a major street, right? Pattern of decisions, again, some incident happened, they change it, you have cars going in multiple directions. There was no one making sure that changes were made. This is not a fault of the staff. This is a fault of management. We continue to see a pattern of these issues with management not communicating, inaccurately communicating, being, what's the correct word? Not treating parents necessarily with respect, maybe being cagey, maybe not being accurate. We see an example of this last week. I know other parents have mentioned this or will mention it. I just got here. I apologize if I didn't hear everyone who spoke already. But what I would like this board to do is before looking at the staff, ask yourself, if you have good management, do people just quit? We are seeing not only a staff member may being considered to be terminated, but we're seeing other staff members quitting. We are seeing large number of people quitting. I'm being told that other staff members are quitting. Is that an issue with one individual or is that an issue with management? My expectation is that you will think about this. If you haven't had time to read my letter, regardless of the decision you make tonight, I would truly appreciate if you read that and considered that. And I think we need to make sure there are the appropriate controls and audits going on to know what's accurately happening in the program. If you're not aware from tonight what the different parents are saying, I encourage you to seek out and get the accurate information so you can make the decisions that are the best for our children. Otherwise, it gives the parents a lot of doubt. You're all voted in. And I would appreciate if you would put the right thought into this to make sure that the parents are happy, listen to them, listen to the other staff members, the staff who report to management and understand what they're saying. And let's see if we can resolve these issues. Thank you.
Why don't you just go? It's fine, because we have two public comments before voting.
I'll do that after. Abby Stern Cardinal. I live on Harper Street. Like a couple other people have said, I'm very nervous to speak. As everyone sitting up there knows, I've had a rocky road with aftercare in ways that I'm not going to go into. I'm really working hard to mend that and be supportive and provide collaborative ideas for programming, things that we have in our town that are free, that are available. I really hope that we can make progress there. However, as Buffy said, we have to speak up when we know something is wrong, even if it scares us, and it does. The after school program is not a choice for my family, as it's not with many families. Some people can do a couple days a week. Often, many of us have our kids there every day of the week. So this is a very scary situation to be put in. But again, I know this is important. The petition that you guys received, since that started circulating, the stories that I have heard, the stories that I've read have been incredible. I really hope, you're all very busy. I understand. I really hope you took the time to read every single one of those from beginning to end. I've read some of them. I'm sure there's a lot you got that I have no idea about, but some of them I've read and they're really powerful. And that's from both, I'll say that's from both families and even former staff members. There's one that I read that was extremely powerful of someone who no longer works there. And I think that needs to be heard. The point that I want to make is that there's a lot of people I've spoken with who want to speak and who want to be here who don't feel safe to do so. They don't feel like their voices matter. They don't feel like they'll be heard. I think that's very sad. And the reason I'm here is because I think you guys do want to hear our voices. I know a lot of you guys and you really Buffy said all of it, you're here because you're committed, you're putting in all this extra time, but people are worried and they don't feel comfortable. So I'm not going to tell stories about Carla because you've heard so many. I mean, I can reiterate, how amazing she's been for my daughter, and that's absolutely the case. But I think it's something that I needed you to know that there's more people who want to be here and more people who want to speak. And I don't know who will continue to speak, but there's voices that you're not hearing. Thank you.
Hi, you guys can hear me okay? I am Shannon Weldy. I'm at 219 Wayne Street. I too am sort of out of my element in this situation. I do not like to make waves. I don't like to make people's jobs more challenging. But I'm here to talk about two things, the after-school program. I sent an email to the board last month to express my concerns about the activities that were not existing at the after-school program. I understand that the portal was updated to include some activities, which basically is art enrichment 5 days a week. And this past week, I was quite excited to see that martial arts was put on the calendar along with the Memorial Day party. Come to find out that the kindergartners were not included in the martial arts activity. That was highly disappointing. I did confirm with multiple parents before I just sent an email about it. But I'm really hoping that this summer, a review and a robust program is put together, especially if prices are going to increase. I understand that there's additional staff that was added. And I'm not quite sure, what the staff is doing and the roles of the staff. So I'm really hoping that this summer we can come together. If there's any focus groups occurring, I'm happy to be on them. I'm happy to lead anything. I'm happy to rally the troops to get people on board. And so that's my one point. My other point, sort of tying in everyone else's comments about Miss Carla, just a quick story. Again, I told you guys in my email last month that I had to take my daughter out of the after-school program. I was in 5 days a week, but we also don't have the option to go less days, but we are making it work with 3 days a week in the aftercare because she just was really struggling. She was bored. She said there was nothing to do. So that is why I took her out. And when this was all occurring, Miss Carla gave her a journal to write in to just kind of keep her engaged and excited to go to aftercare. And she carries that journal every day. Sorry. So Miss Carla really has been the light for our family. And that's it. Thank you. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. Anybody else in person? Okay. We're going to move to online. So we have about 10 minutes. So roughly 3 speakers. If you take the full 3, a little bit more. How many people do we have online? 47. 2 hands. Okay. Yeah, just let me know who. Kristen Springer.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, this is Kristen Springer on Dennison Street, 423 Dennison Street. And I'm sorry I can't be there in person, but thank you for the opportunity to speak. I'm also wanted to speak about Miss Carla. I have had 2 kids go through the district, and she has been instrumental in helping both of them in ways that are unbelievably important, but intangible to measure in terms of their safety and their health and their well-being, and just seeing them as important human beings. And I could go on, but every parent here could. But what I would like to say is that I know that you all will say it's a personnel issue and you can't talk about personnel issues. But I also want to kind of remind you that she's been in our community for over a decade. She is loved and beloved by the children and by the families here, and that should be cherished and honored. And that if there was some problem, I think we owe it to her to trust her, to give her the benefit of the doubt. And if she did do something wrong, which I don't know, that we should try to help her be able to remedy that, just like we would want her to do with our children, and just like she does with our children all of the time. So I know it's really hard to stand up against somebody who is saying we need to fire her and to make those decisions. But I really implore those of you that are on the board, and I know many of you, and I respect you and I love you, and I know that it takes a lot of time and energy, but really try to think through the facts and make the best decision, and try to give a beloved member of our community the respect and the decency that we would want ourselves to have and that we would want her to give our children. So I just beg of you to really take this seriously and try to, instead of terminating her, think about how to help the situation, how to help support her, and perhaps look towards administration and the people we've hired above her that might be causing some of the problems. I did send an email with information about my kids that I won't go through, but I just really would like you to take the time to make sure you're doing the right thing. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Kristen. Angela, who's next? Rebecca Estelle?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, Rebecca Estelle, I'm at 606 Abbott Street. I have two children, one currently at Bartle and one at Irving. And I sent an email late last week with, the specifics of why it is we adore Miss Carla, that I'll just reiterate quickly here. My oldest daughter, Naomi, who's now at Bartle, had a hard time transitioning to kindergarten, was very shy and had a hard time making friends. And I would come
Estelle, we're going to pause your time for a minute. I'm not sure if you're having an audio problem or you need a minute. Yeah.
with
Okay. Rebecca, we're having trouble hearing you. I think it's the connection.
I'm sorry, can you hear me?
Now I can, yes, but we missed
Okay.
some of what you were saying. I'm sorry.
The long and short of it is basically that Miss Carla made my oldest daughter feel so beloved that even years later, she'll run up and hug her on a street when she probably wouldn't even acknowledge most adults. And my second child is in aftercare right now. And she wanted to initially not go to aftercare because she knew I work from home and she'd like to be at home. And she went from that posture to asking to add additional aftercare because of all the projects she was working on with Miss Carla. Nothing comes out of that girl's mouth about aftercare that is positive, that it does not involve Miss Carla. It's literally all you've got. I truly, truly hope, in light of my comments, in light of everyone else's comments tonight, in light of the hundreds of people who came together in support of Miss Carla over just a few days, that we could look at this critically, that we can think about whether or not this is something that necessarily has to happen, or whether or not maybe management can, reconcile and create a better situation for both staff and students. In light of all of this, I have two what I think are reasonable requests. First, don't just take the allegations leveled at face value. They seem I don't know what those allegations are, but anything other than trying to keep Miss Carla employed full-time forever seem at odds with everything we all know about her. Second, consider any credible complaints in the context of all the value she's added over these years. I know it's not possible anymore because Miss Carla is no longer at the car line in the morning, but had you gone to the car line even last week, what you would see is child after child running up to and hugging Miss Carla. Those are the aftercare kids, the kids who are leaving their families for very long days, yet who are excited to run up and hug Miss Carla. Please, I am begging you to look at this critically and closely and to vote no against Miss Carla being terminated. Thank you.
Thank you, Rebecca. Are there any other hands on Zoom? Okay. Okay. I'm sorry. Cristobal.
Hello, can you hear me? I'm sorry, I don't know if
Yes, we can.
Wonderful. So I just want to say that That
I'm sorry, can you
Highland
state your,
Bridge-
I'm sorry, can you
Mhm.
state your name and residence?
So my name is Cristobal Espinosa, and I live in Douglas Lane. And I just want to invite the Board of Trustees to really, also the Board of Education, really to think about how every parent have expressed their trust on Miss Carla. And I think a lot of the problems that we have here is the issue of trust. How since last year, with the issue of either privatization or the outsourcing of the after-school program, to now the firing of Miss Carla, none of these conversations have happened in connection to the community. So what we have is an erosion of the trust that should exist between the administration and the community of parents. It's sad that it's happening like this because when we think about the after school program, most parents were happy with it. I'm sure there was not perfect. There was some issues with it. There was the issue of understaff. There was the issue of some compliances, but in general, there was a general happiness about the service that was provided. But when the reforms were introduced that were not discussed with the community, it started erosion, the distrust that should exist between administration and the community of parents. Last year with the outsourcing of privatization, and now with the fire of Miss Carla, I really invite the Board of Education to really think about who Miss Carla is, how parents feel about her, and whatever allegation is against her should be analyzed in light of the trust that parents constantly put on her and have put on her for years. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, that's going to conclude this first public comment. We're going to briefly just touch base, I guess, with you all on why we can't share information. When dealing with any personnel issue, we have to keep personnel information confidential. The only way that a staff member can give information is if after they receive a rice notice that they are put up for potential termination or another decision that would affect their employment, they are entitled to a public hearing, at which point we can present all of the information. However, if an employee does not select a public hearing, then we can only keep the information confidential in executive session. We have our attorney here, Aaron Mendel, and he is just here with us to make sure that we don't breach any confidentiality on our part. As much as we would, want to share information with you, we can't. What we can share is that we have all read your emails, every single one. Okay, all weekend, all today, all Monday. Okay, we've read them since they started coming in. We have asked a lot of questions and re-asked them and asked follow-up questions. We have done our due diligence in that. We have reviewed information that we need, and the decision we make will be made because we stand by it. Okay. Is there anything, Aaron, that you feel like we need to add in terms of the confidentiality issue?
No, I think you said it well. I'll comment that, board members, when they have to deal with so much of what they have to deal with, whether it's a personnel matter or student matter, they're operating in a way with kind of one or two hands tied behind their back, because some people are free to say what they want. So if we're dealing with the personnel issue, sometimes the staff member who's at issue can speak publicly and can introduce a narrative or a part of a story. But the saying always goes, there's two sides to every story. And unless the staff member waives their right to privacy and requests that the discussion be held publicly in open public meeting, the board doesn't even have an option to share. It doesn't have an option to explain. For instance, I've been listening closely to the comments this evening, and I noticed several speakers mention, I don't know what the allegation is. I don't know what the allegation is. So I'll remind, or I'll just, comment that I'm sure most members of the public wouldn't want a superintendent or a board member to make a decision based on any kind of allegation or based solely on who it's made against without even hearing the allegation. But, and unfortunately, with members of the public, without the ability of the board members to share what is going on and what, sometimes the public never gets that information. So something to keep in mind.
Thank you. We're going to move on to board committee reports and recommendations. I'll begin with curriculum and instruction. So curriculum and instruction has not met. We meet in one of the first weeks in June. For this meeting, we have approval of field trip requests. We have the approval of the safe opening and continuity of service plan. That is our like COVID reentry plan. We did know that the state, or not the state, the CDC had redone some recommendations regarding quarantine. However, the state has issued no guidance on that, so our plan remains the same. We have the approval of a teen center counseling intern from Monmouth University. Approval of our summer holistic intervention camp that will run from Monday, July 8th through Thursday, August 1st. Approval of the summer teaching and reinforcement, or STAR, extended school year program that will run from July 8th through August 8th. And we have approval of 2 job descriptions, one for a technology technician, and then the other is our site manager description, which is being updated to go from an hourly to a salaried rate. And that concludes my report. Any questions? Okay, equity and excellence.
Yes.
You're not. Try Dan.
Because I was supposed to be sitting there, I think. Equity and Excellence met on May 16th. And as usual, we had a pretty rigorous discussion. Our first item on the agenda was a follow-up on discipline and attendance data, actually just discipline data from Bartle that was reported in our April meeting, and committee asked for questions around just a demographic breakdown on the discipline data. So this particular set of data referred to incidents as of March 13th of 2024. So from the beginning of the school year through till March 13th. And at that time during that time period, there were 305 discipline incidents reported at Bartle. And the demographic breakdown was as follows. 55.7% of the students involved in these incidents were from socioeconomically disadvantaged backgrounds. 28.6% were white, 28.6% Hispanic or Latino, 20% Black, 12.9% Asian, 10% mixed race, 21.4% were classified as special education, and 13% classified as English language learners. Our main takeaways from this demographic breakdown was that there was a large percentage of students who were socioeconomically disadvantaged represented in these incidences. We were also, I think, pleasantly surprised to see that the special education student percentage at Bartle was lower than what we had expected based on the much higher numbers in special education discipline data at the middle school. So Dr. Suska did share that administration has been focusing on providing more professional development for special education teachers to support their instructional practices, which we know does lend also to the discipline and behavioral needs as well. So she talked about kind of the relationship that they're trying to draw between providing better instructional support, making all students feel like they're being challenged, and then also how that bleeds into their behaviors in the classroom and discipline issues. Dr. Susko also shared that some of the targeted areas of the professional development included scaffolding, differentiation, and growth mindset. We also discussed that there has been a challenge with finding middle school special education teachers. However, 2 recent resignations of special education teachers has resulted in the addition of 2 strong special education teachers to fill those vacancies. Next year, the middle school will have, so that means, and this is actually, let me just back up for a second, those two strong special education teachers are going to be pulled up from Bartle to fill vacancies at the middle school. Is that correct, Dr. Suska? I'm sorry. Vacancies were at the middle school, correct? Okay. Next year, the middle school will have 10 special education teachers, which is a good number given the size of the school population. And that should also help hopefully reduce some of the behavioral challenges because there will be more support for our students with disabilities. Building administrators are continuing to work on unpacking this discipline data. This is an ongoing process to identify students with high incident rates, to look at spikes in discipline at different points in the school year, as well as patterns and spikes in different areas. Administrators also use the discipline data to develop and implement strategies targeted at areas of need. So an example was provided where administrators were able to correlate kind of uncharacteristic behaviors among a group of students in a particular class, and correlate that with an extended absence of a beloved teacher who had a strong bond with those students. So the administrative staff did strategize on ways to provide more support for those students. We also talked about school-based leadership teams reviewing attendance, discipline, and tardy data during their monthly meetings, which we were really, pleased to hear that is an ongoing process. The middle school team has identified the trends in special education behavioral data and is, of course, working towards addressing those trends. Professional development is also being focused on, or is also focusing on strengthening teaching practices in inclusive classrooms, which we're really happy to hear. Bartle and middle school special education staff will be provided with the training this summer, focusing on developing co-teaching and inclusive learning environments, and that will be facilitated by Dr. Linda Edwards. Moving forward, Dr. Suska will be providing the committee with periodic year-to-date data, which of course we will report out to the public as a part of our Equity and Excellence Committee meeting notes. Then our second topic and final topic on our agenda was the law enforcement resolution that was recently passed, and some questions that arose around the resolution, both from committee members and board members at large. Dr. Suska did share a draft update to the resolution language to address concerns that were expressed about the broad language regarding the type of student information that law enforcement would have access to and the circumstances under which that access would be given. Dr. Suska explained that current video footage of school buildings, for example, are accessible remotely by law enforcement in the case of an emergency, but the law enforcement does not have ongoing live access to the camera footage. They must request access from the building administrator. The police department cannot ask for would not ask, I'm sorry, for a subpoena for student incidents that take place off school grounds. That was just a question that arose, so we did get confirmation of that. For incidents that occur on school grounds, the police department does need a subpoena before they can obtain any student records. Subpoenas can take up to 5 days. On average, and Dr. Suska explained that if a student is subject to discipline or code of conduct responses, then it would be considered a student record, which is covered under FERPA, which was explained to us the reason why we needed to have the resolution to allow for law enforcement to get access to student records or building videos in the experiences or instances, I should say, of extreme emergencies. A recent example of an HBPD emergency access to cameras incident occurred during an early morning incident in Bartle, on Bartle school grounds involving a community member. Police requested access to cameras to determine the nature of the incident, whether it was a self-inflicted incident or a criminal act, so that they could respond appropriately. Once the police determined the nature of the incident, Dr. Suska and Bartle administration were able to decide how to ensure the safety of the students. So this resolution is also linked to the Uniform Memorandum of Agreement between education and law enforcement officials, which is a guiding document that is intended to promote cooperation between law enforcement and school officials and to help protect the school environment. This particular memorandum, which is around 70 pages long, I believe, is mandatory. Every district in the state of New Jersey has to annually review, and we don't have to annually review it, but we do have to annually sign and implement this memorandum. Our district, and I'm sure some others, we do take the time actually to review the memorandum. And in some cases, we have also submitted, or at least one case, and I believe that was in 2019 during the last revision to the memorandum, we added an addendum with comments and on specific clauses in the memorandum that we felt we wanted more specificity on to reflect our values in this school district. Districts are not allowed to in any way change or take anything out of the memorandum, but we can certainly add, again, certain addendums to clauses in the memorandum. So we just kind of talked about that process in the committee. This is, again, an annual process. But what we were really questioning was whether or not the regulations and clauses in the MOA actually kind of trump the need for a resolution to allow the police department to have access to student records or video footage of the school buildings in the case of a serious emergency. So we agreed on the importance clearly of having, making sure law enforcement has access to video footage in emergency situations, like a bomb threat, an incident that could be, very harmful for the student body and staff. And we certainly all agree that the value of prioritizing safety and security in these situations. However, again, the question is whether or not the mandatory reporting that to law enforcement that is laid out in the MOA trumps what is being or what has been included in the resolution. So again, this is all sort of hindsight discussion and conversation, but I think it was just around us as a board and committee getting more information about the resolution. So we are still doing some fact finding and in the process of determining exactly what is required mandatory reporting under MOA and whether or not we actually do need to maintain this new resolution. We don't have an answer to that yet. Dr. Suska will be consulting with Jonathan Bush and the county as well, who's involved in this, to determine what we are responsible for. So we will have more updates on that soon. And lastly, we did talk about just a very quick update on the evaluation of our RISE program, and that is our restorative in-school restorative in-school alternative to suspension program. And Dr. Suska will be meeting with the evaluator of the program that was recently approved, Kathy Heine, to begin mapping out the evaluation plan. In a couple of weeks, the administration will begin providing documents to Dr. Heine so that she can begin her work. So we're excited to hear that and getting a good evaluation of our program. And that is all. Any questions?
Thank you, Monique. Finance and facilities.
Okay, bear with me. This is my first time doing this. So facilities and finance did meet on May 14th. We discussed the before and after care program. Registration is going to open for the fall in the next 3 to 4 weeks. Prices are the current budget, which we discussed, is going to include a 4% raise for all staff, but no increase in rates. And what budget that is with the addition of, there's going to be some new preschoolers coming in as the preschool program continues to expand. On facilities, with the help of an architect from Spiesel. This is very exciting. We're going to be submitting 2 applications for facility construction to add preschool classrooms, which is a state grant. The due date for the state grant is June 3rd, 2024. And if we were to be approved for these grants, the state would pay 60% of new construction to modify Irving. We're also then going to be updating our long-range plan as well to meet some state regulations on how we can access this kind of funding, which would really be remarkable. And then for finance, we have our annual renewal, and I'll be going through some of this, but it's annual renewals of professional services. We did this in January already, but we're doing it now so that it more aligns with the school year moving forward. We're we're also going to be voting to accept $254,000 from the Kushner Estate to build an environmental sustainability center at the high school. And if there's any money that's left over from that, the plan would be to go to Irving for an outside pavilion. And then, loss of state funding this year, state aid was a large point when we were doing our budget. And the governor did sign an update to the 2024-2025 school funding bill that's intended to return 45% of state aid cuts, which for Highland Park would be like $122,000 out of the 270 some odd that we lost. So that is great. And then we do have some agenda items that we're going to be voting on. So there's going to be approval of submission of the ASEA grant amendment number 2 for fiscal year 24, the approval of contractors for professional development, approval of bill list, approval of treasurer's report, approval of the board secretary's report, approval of Board of Education certifications, approval of budget transfers, approval to void outstanding checks, approval of travel and related expense reimbursement reports, approval of contracted service providers and related services, approval of an out-of-district placement, approval of bedside instruction, approval of out-of-district related services, approval for resolution of the 2024-25 schedule of payments, transfer of collected taxes from Highland Park to the Board of Education, approval of contract renewal bond agent services, approval of contract renewal payroll services, approval of contract renewal district personnel substitute services, approval of contract renewal software information system, approval of service renewal right to know, approval of project submission for Irving Primary School, which is what I was just discussing, for the possibility of 60% state funding, approval of salaries funded by federal grant, approval of contract for replacement of Chilleret High School and Middle School, approval of the donation, which I talked about, and the approval for contract for non-public Title I services. Any
Thank you, Ann.
questions?
I just want to clarify, the 4% raise is for the staff, not the raise for the rates. There is no
Yes.
raise for rates.
There's no
in
raise
after
for
school.
rates. There's a 4% increase for the workers at after school. There's no increase. The budget has no increase in rates, and that's.
Yeah, I was gonna say, so, and you drew attention in the beginning to proposals to apply for grants to expand to add on to the Irving building. And I just want to thank Denise, Rosa, and Dr. Suska for working really hard. It is no small task to write not one grant, but 2. This would really benefit the district. And I think having seen the plans, I think they make a lot of sense. And if I can think of one thing that could help out the students who need help the most, it's expanding pre-K, getting those kids in school early. So thank you so much.
And I'd just like to clarify, this was also an opportunity that was announced, and the process had to move very quickly because there is a due date to get the applications in. And like I said, it's just 60% straight funding. So if we can get this, it's the state paying for 60% of us being able to expand pre-K facilities. It's a remarkable opportunity.
And is this the same, sorry, as there's a 30 million, I think, pot that's available for expansion. Is this the same? Is this different or the same? What does it mean?
I think it's the same.
Okay, I was just.
That's just, so that's getting so we have to get the application in. And And that's,
Yeah.
but it's for additions or renovations of existing facilities. It's not building new facilities. So that's why
Got it.
focusing in on Irving and what we can do to, reach our plan to continue expanding the pre-K program, that we're making a good faith effort to continue to expand, which we are on track to do. We did this year, we're on track to expand next year and to keep moving forward.
Great, thank you.
I had a quick question about the Kushner donation. At one point, we were talking about the renovating the baseball field as well. Is that a separate donation? That I haven't seen that on our agenda.
Yes, so that's a separate donation. That went through the HP Booster Club. The donation that we're getting tonight is from the HPEF, the Ed Foundation. At this point, there has been no communication to the Booster Club to us regarding that. We've had many discussions, and at this point, I think we're waiting for them to give us a contract, and to hopefully, once they do that, we can approve the contract and hopefully start that renovation. But unfortunately, it's been several months and we really haven't heard much from them.
And they haven't had meetings on the liaison to that group. There haven't been any meetings, so but I can reach out to them.
Okay, that'd be great. Thank you.
And then I had also had a question about the pass-through money that we vote on. Is there any more information about like what the interactive workshop? We voted on security before, but I don't remember ever voting on programming.
Yeah,
Is
so
there-
for any of our non-public schools, all the money, like you said, funnels through the district. So that also includes professional development. Some of the challenges that we're facing is that they don't communicate to us in a timely fashion for our board meetings to be able to use their money for professional development. So one of the things Ms. Stadolsky did as she left the district was, if you look at the website, there's now a whole section for Title I, the non-public schools to access their funding, how they can do it. And then through our new employee, Dana Kessel, we'll continue doing that. And she is going to actually put send email reminders to our non-public schools monthly to say, hey, do you have professional development? Here's your deadline, to make sure they hit our deadlines in a timely fashion, because they're supposed to pass through professional development, but oftentimes they miss our deadline, so we can't approve it.
And this is just more of a general question, but how can we approve it if we don't know anything about what we're approving?
So we have
anything about the program.
Yeah, so that is part of what Dana does in her role, and through the Ed Services Commission as well, is to vet the technology and vet the professional development and resources. So that's all done behind the scenes before it goes to a board agenda.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, personnel and communication.
We did not meet this month. We meet next Tuesday night.
Closer.
We did not meet before this board meeting. We meet next Tuesday night. And I do have 2 read-ins that I'll get to, so I'll just go over the agenda. One is the ratification of the contract with the HPEA. Number 2 is approval of resignations. Number 3 is approval of new hires. Number 4, approval of a termination for the before and after school program. Number 5, approval of employment of the school business administrator for the district. 6, approval of the superintendent for the district. 7, approval of representative assembly of the Educational Services Commission of New Jersey. 8 is a read-in. Approval of the reappointment of the principal at the high school just for 1 month of July, and the end dates should actually be July 1st through July 31st. On the agenda, it says August 1st. Number 9, approval of extra pay due to in-house transfers of a paraprofessional and teacher associate. 10 is a long list of approval of classroom and office moves. Number 11 is approval of a translator for the BPAC event. Number 12, approval of a long list of summer staff. Number 13, approval of the 2024-25 Schedule B positions. That one is an even longer list. In fact, it's still going on page 6 of it, 7, okay. Number 14, approval of staff for the Title I SIA Family Engagement Night. 15, approval of staff for the lesson plan writing for math at the middle school. 16, approval of staff for the 2024 Summer Teaching and Reinforcement Extended School Year Program, the STAR program. Another long list. Number 17, approval of toileting stipend for Star. 18, approval of staff for summer ESL screening. 19, approval of nursing staff for summer 24 employment. 20, approval of nursing staff for summer 24 employment. 21, approval of staff for summer 24 employment child study team testing and IEP meetings. 22, approval of handle with care training. 23, approval of Title III newcomer handbook revisions. 24, approval of staff for summer holistic intervention program. That's the SHIP program. Many pages, that one. 25, approval of coordinators for SHIP. And then another read-in, number 26, approval of extra duties for the youth safety specialist. And I'll read this one because you don't have it in your copy. I move that the Board of Education accept the recommendation of the superintendent to approve Alexander Taransky to attend the Board of Ed meeting on Tuesday, April 28th at a rate of $27.07 per hour, effective April 28th. And that is the end.
Great, thank you. I'd like to extend a thank you for to Monique and Marilyn for working on the negotiations committee. We are really excited that this is finally on our agenda. It was a long process, very collaborative process. So I think that we're all proud of the work that we did on that with HPAA, and we look forward to pushing this forward. I also would like to clarify that all of the reappointments have the salary rate as TBD because the contract has not been ratified yet. Any other questions? Okay, policy.
I could try to do it from here. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Terrific. I also want to thank all the people that worked on the negotiations, including the HPEA, for getting us to this point when we get to vote on it. Under policies, we have for first reading, sports-related concussions, attendance, and education of homeless children and youth. Second reading, these are all policies we discussed last time. Guidance counseling, sportsmanship, equal opportunity, secret societies, equal access to student organizations, and notification of juvenile offender case disposition. And I don't believe there was a meeting this month yet. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for policy? Okay, we're going to go to our second public comment. The Highland Park Board of Education welcomes public participation and has reserved this time for your comments. Board policy number 0167 establishes and regulates the right of the public to participate in public meetings. This public comment period there's no time limit, either on the duration of the comment or on the period itself. If anybody in the room would like to come up for public comment, please do so.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Rose DiLorenzo, 440 Cedar Ave. First, before I get to why I'm here, sorry, I was late to the meeting. I did want to say that kudos to the 254K on the environmental sustainability to the high school. I thought that was really great. Also, the 2 grants that were written, any grants that could be written these days. Thank you for that. High school freshman orientation, if somebody can tell the parents of the incoming freshman class what week it's going to be, we would appreciate that. I've emailed Lassiter, I've emailed Dr. Donovan, I emailed Mr. Richardson, the vice principal. I just haven't gotten it. So if you could do that, that'd be great. And then before I lead into the before aftercare staff, the one question I had was, do we have a nurse on staff? Are we required to have one during aftercare? Perhaps you are, perhaps I'm not aware of that. Shame on me. But I just wanted to say that I too am here to speak on behalf of Carla Draper. The kids know her as Miss Carla. Sorry I didn't get to hear everyone else. I would have loved to hear because I kind of one of those people that feed off of everybody else. But as the board is aware, I did write a letter, expressing my concerns. I'm a parent of two children in the district, one older, one in Irving presently. So we've known Miss Carla and two members of her family for quite some time now. And, Miss Carla, she's a familiar face. We all come, including the children. I feel like that we as parents and those of us who spoke online or in the room, we're here also to be the voice of the children. And, the children come and they love Miss Carla. And, when I asked my 5-year-old just yesterday or on the way back, maybe we were still camping, but, what is the best thing, what is it that you like about Miss Carla? And he just told me simply his few words, but she is the best. So I actually put that in my email to the board as well. But overall, I was here last year. I was fortunate enough to participate in the before aftercare program and the evaluation in that. And, we've thanked the board for keeping it in-house. We felt, a lot of us, the members of the community, felt that it was very important to keep it in-house. And I did show my appreciation for that. But we also recognize that, the board had, they needed to go and evaluate the other options, but they did. They came, they listened to community. So we thank everyone for that. But, there have been problems. Now I'm going to be going into more about the before aftercare program. There have been problems since the beginning, and we were all trying to be open-minded, try to give everyone a chance, including the new hirees and stuff. But, we're coming to the end of the school year, and some of these problems have just been ongoing. And I've been hearing it from parents, and maybe not everything affects me and my kids, but I feel like that we need to advocate for everybody in the school community, those that participate in the aftercare program. And it could be simple things as like, mommy, I'm hungry, I didn't really get a snack, or they only serve me popcorn or crackers, or it could be other things about the enrichment and the programming. And I know we're all working on that, believe me, but just in general, I think, overall communication could be better. I did give it the example where last week's newsletter about the schedule and whatnot, it advertised that the kindergartners as well as the first graders got karate. Well, obviously that wasn't the case, because every single kindergartner parent that I asked, whom asked their children, none of them got it. It was only for the first graders. But yet even in the newsletter, it was advertised that the kindergartens were that. Okay, it's a minor thing. And maybe there's a reason why. Maybe there are too many children, whatever the reason is. As a parent, it would just be nice to have more communication about why, and just overall the program, the communication. I would just love, and most of us would love, better communication and stuff. And, and there are some significantly negative things about the program or about the things that have transpired over the years and stuff. And we hope and we ask that we collectively can improve it. We all want to move forward. We want to get past the negativity. I don't think, I'm also up here to stand to tell you, I don't think Miss Carla's should be terminated. I understand it's a personnel thing, but you, as the members of the Board of Education, have a right. Each and every one of you, well, maybe not you as the attorney, but the others all have a right to vote no and give Miss Carla a chance. I think that some of it may have been, and again, I'm not privy to all the information. I'm not saying I would be, but that Miss Carla is not necessarily always the source of the problems that it appears that some things are made out to be. And again, I get it. I don't know everything that's going on, but one of the circumstances, there's supposed to be 2 site supervisors. And my understanding is that when the pre-K supervisor is absent, that Miss Carla is the one that's a supervisor for the overall, day of the program. And maybe I'm wrong with that, but I do try to read up on job descriptions that were written or things that you're supposed to do. And so I'm just trying to gather all the information. I do reach out when I can, and had a nice, pleasant conversation to Suska. She answered some of my questions the last time I reached out about the before and after care program before Miss Carla and your pending vote for her termination. And, there's just so many good things about her. There's some children, the special needs children, that really look forward to her, and they really, really just, she gets hurt. She nurtures the children. She goes and she wants to help those children. And maybe there's some things procedurally she didn't do correctly. We're all human. We all make mistakes. I know I do. But, so I don't know if we can have a positive outlook and move forward and make the program successful with Miss Carla. and, and just reinstate her, work on things, sit down and communicate so that, we're all doing what's best for our children. And the one question that I have, and I know it was one of the things that was in the job description about the before and after program supervisor, is that, the supervisor, she supervises the site managers. And I was made aware, online is a valuable resource, that our, before and after care program site supervisor just took a human resources internship in Tampa, Florida, and flew last week down to Florida. And I saw some comments about how this person was going to be down there. Now, in the job description, it does say what her responsibilities are and whatnot. It doesn't say that she has to be present in person. So maybe she doesn't have to be, but how are you supposed to report to the director and supervise site managers when you're not even in the state? So that's something that I wanted to leave the board with. So I thank you for all your hard work. I do think, and I do recognize as a parent, listening to all the things you do, trying to get money, try to squeeze everything out and everything. I do thank you for that, but please reconsider, Miss Carla. Let's try to work through this. And you know what, maybe table it for another time and maybe just go back to the table for Miss Carla. I think she'd be a huge detriment and a great loss if you were to terminate her tonight. So I thank everyone for listening. Thank you.
Thank you. The next public commenter.
Hi, Abby Stern Cardinal again. I think Rose is right. Sometimes it's helpful to hear other people and then fill in things that you think of. So I am going to speak again. I've emailed some of you guys some of these things, but I wanted to bring them up. I'm very confused on how a job description, how you can vote yes on a job description to update it, to have a reporting structure to someone who doesn't currently exist. That I don't know how you can vote yes for that. I really hope that that's considered. If that's in the works, talk about it in personnel, I mean, Jen, you said you didn't even meet, which I understand everyone's busy, but how can you make that kind of a decision? There are big structural issues that need to be examined here. I've brought up licensing before. You've all talked about it. You've said we meet all requirements. While, my experience is that's not the case at this point. I hope it will be at some point, but this is why we need licensing. We need standards. We need regulations. I hope that's the goal. It was the goal from the very beginning. I've rewatched some past board meetings. It was the goal for every single step of the process. If that's not possible anymore, which trying to think back is what was said, I believe last meeting, it might be more complicated. You can pass a policy that says that we expect the program to meet these standards, whether we are formally licensed or not. That is within your ability. And that would have corrected a lot of the things that have happened this year. So maybe we can't get formally licensed. That's a shame because it's supposed to get funding for our children and our families, but we can still meet the licensing requirements with regard to programming, food, screen time. Won't get into that. Group sizes. There shouldn't be more than 30 children in a group at a time, according to state licensing for kindergarten and up, and for pre-K, I believe it's 20. Now, yes, that adds staff. That's complicated. I get it. It's hard, but we should be meeting the requirements that are set by the state, whether we can be formally licensed or not. The reason, I believe, I could be wrong, the reason that schools are exempt is because there's policies, there's processes. They expect that it's going to meet that level, a really, baseline level of standards. With regard to changing the job description, I'm concerned about process here. It seems like things are happening before they're being voted on. You all, the 9 of you who are here, and I guess or 7 here too on Zoom, oversee this district. That is your role. There are a lot of things you can't do, but there are things you can do, and you get to vote. So if things are happening before you get to vote, that doesn't work. That takes away. Oh, my dad is calling. That that takes away your important role as a Board of Education member. And again, why we voted for you, why we support you, why we're excited when you got elected and cheered for you, because you have an oversight role. I don't understand, we all know that Miss Carlo was fired, past tense. So why is it being voted on now? Why was there not discussion? I don't understand this order, and this has happened with other things. So I know there's no official end time, but I think that's all I have. It just seems like things are being rushed, not taken, you're not taking your time. And then one thing that Rose said that I wanted to expand on really quickly is we are the voices for our children. They're young. I was really amazed and impressed by the high schoolers at the last meeting. Our little kids can't do that, let alone be awake at this time of night. They're all in bed. What happened with Miss Carla shows a lack of respect to those children. They have gotten no explanation. I had to say to my daughter, by the way, Miss Carla won't be there. And she said, why? I said, well, she's busy. She can't be there. I had nothing. I haven't been told anything. I don't know what I'm supposed to say to my kid. She was so sad. So what do I tell her? So it's a lack of respect to the staff who don't know what to do. You ask how we know these things, staff talk to us. I mean, the ones who are good, they tell us things that they're within their right to tell us of okay, who's in charge? But we don't know. But I had to tell my daughter, I had to make something up because I didn't know what to tell her. Oh, and why isn't she on the car line? Oh, well, she's really busy. She can't be here anymore. Well, how do I say hi to her? I don't know. I don't know when you're going to see her next. So.
Thank you. Anybody else in person? Okay, online?
Maybe
Our
I
webinar?
could, would it be helpful if I, over here, I'm sorry. Would it be helpful if I talk a little bit more about the process to see if I can clarify?
Because yes, I did email you and clarified there is no termination previously. Okay, and I clarified the rice process, but we can have Mr. Mendel explain it.
Right. So, there's only so much we can say again because of the confidentiality issues. So to the extent that you're all here to talk about the termination that's on the agenda for today, that has not been voted on yet, and therefore it has not occurred yet. So there was a discussion that was held in executive session amongst the board members about different items on the agenda for tonight. When there is a personnel agenda on the item, personnel item on the agenda, excuse me, and it's going to affect a employee's status, the board members, pursuant to Open Public Meetings Act, most of the board members' discussions have to be done in public when it's a regular board meeting. When it's a personnel matter, those discussions must be done in private, in executive session, and cannot be shared with the members of the public unless the staff member chooses to allow that to be shared. But when the staff member does not allow that to happen, the board has no discretion to decide to share. It can't share what the allegations are. It can't share if there's been progressive discipline. It can't share if multiple opportunities for reform and have been offered. It can't share if transfers to different assignments have been offered and refused. None of those things, no issues whatsoever about personnel matters can be shared. So when I hear members of the public, accusing board members of being disrespectful by choosing not to share something, I just, to me, it's important to try to clarify as best I can that it's not that the board members are not exercising their discretion in deciding what to share and what not to share. They are required by law to not share and to not respond.
Thank you. Buffy?
I wasn't going to share again because I really said everything I needed to. Elizabeth Wild Greenberg, 60 North 7th Avenue. I will just respond to the attorney's statement, the attorney who is not a member of our community, the attorney who is employed by this Board of Education for $180 an hour. That's what his firm is paid. Most of our staff cannot afford an attorney for that much money. And so we are really talking about a very unequal situation here. And I have heard the implication now several times. Well, if the staff member wants to make it public, she certainly can. Well, I'm pretty sure the staff member does not have $180 an hour to pay for an attorney the way our tax dollars pay for you to be here tonight to protect this Board of Education and Dr. Suska. So let's keep the focus on what it is, okay? We all understand how this works. We all understand that you are not going to share details of what the allegations are against Ms. Carla or what the disciplinary process was or wasn't. We all understand that. But as members of the public, we are here to tell you about our experiences with a staff member who you are voting to terminate tonight, a staff member that we all love and that our children love and has helped us. So this stuff about the process, we get it. It's a distraction. But I also want everyone in this room to remember that this attorney sitting at the table, our tax dollars pay for. Miss Carla, other paraprofessionals in the district do not have an attorney that our tax dollars pay for, okay? This is not an equal playing field. So the implication, well, if she wanted to make it public, that's extremely disingenuous. I do not also disrespect. We are not talking about the board being respectful or disrespectful. Our comments have been very focused on one thing, which is who Miss Carla is and each of your responsibility to vote yes or no on her termination. And we are giving you our input about what our experiences have been, mine for 10 years in the district, other people for less than a year in the district. And that's what this conversation is about. So that's all I want to say.
Eric Goldman, I just wanted to ask questions. I know this isn't like an interactive thing. I don't know if you respond to them afterwards, but I think the one thing that's maybe not clear to everyone, they say like allegations. I assume an investigation was performed. You talk to people, you look at different things, and whatever decision you make is not based upon, some report or just a recommendation. From what you're saying, you had an executive session, whether that was live, virtual, email, whatever, but it's an informed decision based on information. I assume that is the case. Also, I want to understand, we're just talking about the staff member's termination from the aftercare program, but not her other responsibilities, which was a separate role. It's a separate kind of line item. And we're saying there's an issue with the staff member in one capacity, but not the other one. I just want to make sure that that's also the case, or is this a termination of the other responsibilities as well? My two other questions that are a little bit more general. One, I want to understand, is the board happy with the direction of the program? Maybe not today, maybe in the future, just the after-school program in general. Are there things that you want to be done or other things that you've heard? Is there a plan for that to improve it, not just, outsource it or insource it, but what is it that you would really like to have done to improve the program? What can be done? Obviously, there's funding, there's a million different issues. And last, I just want to understand, there are other staff members who are leaving voluntarily. I just want to understand that the board has done exit interviews and got that feedback, so that way we understand the program. Because I do think that is important context to the decision that you might be making tonight. So those are just my questions. I don't know if they impact the way you think, if you answer them after this.
We can definitely touch on some of them in old business. Okay. But in regard to just the agenda item, it is before and after school only. Okay, we didn't get to our webinar guests yet. So any webinar attendees for public comment? Okay, give it a minute. How many people do we have? Okay. Okay. All right, before we move to,
Oh, okay. Sorry. I'm just trying to figure out whether I'm trying to stall for a minute so you, okay. Okay, one more thing. First of all, I agree with Buffy. This is a public comment opportunity for us to speak to the board. I mean, you responded directly to me. I understand the process. None of us are asking for personnel information from you. We're sharing and I didn't say any of them were disrespectful. I found that a little bit disrespectful personally. I'll just say that. I am trying to show all of you the utmost of respect, and I have friendships with several of you. I have no disrespect for you. I'm allowed to, during public comment, express how I feel, as is every member of the public, as many of you have done either to this board or other people previously in other settings. So I don't appreciate that being called that. I'm saying
I apologize for doing that.
Thank you. I have a couple questions. I'm wondering if you saw the letter of termination. I think that would be important context if you have. I'm curious about that. I hope you had full context and what the specific reason for termination was in writing and whether that was put in writing, whether Ms. Carla was given the opportunity with sufficient time to give a rebuttal. I agree with Buffy. She, any of us are in really vulnerable positions. I mean, her especially, she still has a job during the day. So she can't speak. She really can't. And to not understand that position that she's in, yeah. I also wanted to clarify because this was kind of implied. There are more situations where things have been done before your vote. And yes, I have gotten some replies, but I think it's important to be said. There are people who have started for months before a job description was even approved. Maybe that was an oversight, but it's happened. I want to give the benefit of the doubt, but you need to make sure as a board that you are asking and requiring that things are approved by you and voted on prior to being implemented. And that's not what I've seen. Again, my opinion, as I have a right to say in public comment. So yeah, that was just in response to the response that I got. Thank you.
Anybody online? Okay. And who is it? Laura?
Hello, Laura Bullock, 148 Duclos Lane. I would just also like to express my support for Miss Carla. She's been wonderful with my son last year. He was in the after school program and she went out of her way to make him feel welcome. He had a really hard time adjusting. And she went and spoke to his teachers and his para in school, which she was able to do, obviously, because she works at Irving, and would come back and talk to me about what was going on and really went out of her way to kind of make that connection between school and the after school program for him, which we really appreciated. And I would also just like to say, which has been said already, but I know the board, you are all representing us and you're working really, really hard to, make the school district as good as possible. But with some of the big decisions over the past, year and a half, it just sometimes feels like the community speaks out strongly on something and our voices aren't being heard when the decision is ultimately made. I understand this is a personnel issue and there are things that we are unaware of, but the community is speaking really strongly about this. And after several decisions when we just feel alienated, we're really the primary stakeholders in this. And we are the people you're representing. It just it's feeling really alienating to continually speak out about issues we feel very, very strongly about, and then feel that the board is making decisions that are different than what the community is saying we want and we need for our children. So maybe there's an issue of communication. Maybe we need to better understand the decisions you guys are making, but it would be really helpful if we felt like our voices were at some point being heard. And again, I just hope that there's some way to work this out with Miss Carla because she is one of the best educators and staff at Irving, and it would be a horrible mistake to let her go from the after school program. Thank you.
Thank you, Laura. Shamika?
Hi, my name is Shamika Jenkins. I'm at 2 Walter Avenue, and I also just want to show my support for Miss Carla. Miss Carla being not in the aftercare program as of now due to the pending decision if she's going to be terminated now is already impacting our children. As Abby said before, the kids are asking where Miss Carla is, and I've had to lie to my son and say to him, she's busy. My son looks forward to seeing Miss Carla in aftercare. She has made a big impact on him for me moving into this district 2 years ago. And also, you know, I think a lot of the parents fought for aftercare to stay in-house because Miss Carla had such a great plan for programming. And yes, we do know that, you know, a director was brought in to help outsource it or to help with the program, but there's been a lot of things that have gone on, a lot of communication, failure of communication. And, you know, we just want the best for our children. And Miss Carla, she is the best. She loves our children like they are her own. And it would be such a disservice to our children if Miss Carla is no longer in the aftercare program. Thank you.
Thank you, Shamika. No other hands? Okay. Since we had paused before, does anybody else on the board have anything to say before we move on? No, it was just, I said, does anybody have anything to say before we move on? Yes?
I just want to say that, just so everybody knows, we have spent countless hours looking into everything and not taking anything lightly. So like Allison said earlier, anything that we decide has been thoroughly researched. And, you know, we usually vote the way what we believe in is the right thing to do. So.
Anne?
I also just want to say, like, we take this extraordinarily seriously, our role on the board here. I read every single email that came in. I read every email that came in. I read every single email that came in. I share some of those same experiences. So that have impacted my family as well. So I just want everyone here to know we take this extraordinarily seriously. And as Nikki said, countless hours.
Ethan?
Yeah, like Nikki and Ann, and like I think all of us here, I read every email. In a case like this, it would definitely be my process to, and we say, I believe you. I haven't had Miss Carla. We didn't do that after the after school program, but I'm sure of course, she's a wonderful person. She must be. I'm sorry. I believe you. I gathered all the information I could. I met with people, I talked with people, board members, administrators, asked a lot of questions. I pushed back. I'm not in this case or any other a rubber stamp. Not that anyone said that tonight, but just so it's clear. And this is a hard vote to take because I know it's going to hurt some people that I care about. But I have to say it's not been a hard decision to make.
Anybody else? Okay. We know this is really emotional for you, and so we want to apologize if we're coming across crass or if we have not really shown the extent to which we have been agonizing over this, losing sleep. And the reason that we tell you this is because that's all we can tell you. Okay, like we can only tell you that. It's incredibly hard to do this. It is something that when we all ran for school board, we knew we would encounter difficult decisions that would challenge us. And we are being met with them. And we want you to know that we have done our due diligence in looking into our personnel issues. And we are aware of situations that need improvement. Very well aware. And we are dedicated to producing the best program, local program, because there are not a lot left. The best local program in Middlesex County. So we appreciate your feedback. We appreciate your comments. And we'll talk a little bit more about that in old business. Right now, I'm going to move to the approval of resolutions. Every year, we have to approve to recommend, we have to move to accept recommendations for reappointments to certain positions. So number 15 is the approval of those resolutions. They include our purchasing agent, Mr. Rosa. They include the designated providers of services for staff members, bids and contracts, cooperative purchases, professional services, legal services, board appointments to different positions, 16. And 17, oh yeah, so 17 will be the board action items. So at this moment, I would like to approve. I'm sorry, I would like to move numbers 15, A through G.
Second.
Dr. Beatty,
Yes.
Ms. Cassel Dunn,
Yes.
Dr. Coleman,
Yes.
Dr. Pixley,
Yes.
Ms. Prus,
Yes.
Dr. Schoolman,
Yes.
Ms. Stanio,
Yes.
Ms. Vardaman.
Yes.
Ms. Voorhees.
Yes.
I'd like to move number 16, approval of the board appointments, letters A through Z. Second.
Dr. Beatty,
Yes.
Cassel Dunn,
Yes.
Dr. Coleman,
Yes.
Dr. Pixley,
Yes.
Ms. Prus,
Yes.
Dr. Schoolman,
Yes.
Ms. Stanio,
Yes.
Ms. Vardaman,
Yes.
Ms. Voorhees.
Yes.
All right, we're going to move to board action items. Dr. Suska, for the job description for site manager, can we amend that to include program supervisor? Or can we set a start date for when we believe the new position will be instated? Like, how can we make sure that it covers the program supervisor, assistant site manager, site
Right,
manager?
everything included. So my
Yes.
recommendation maybe is, maybe we should table it. Yeah, let's table it so that we can amend it and adjust accordingly. That would be my recommendation.
All right. We are going to move items for curriculum and instruction, numbers 1 through 6, tabling 6B.
Second.
Dr. Beatty,
Yes.
Ms. Cassel Dunn,
Yes.
Dr. Coleman.
Yes.
Dr. Pixley,
Yes.
Ms. Prus,
Yes.
Dr. Schoolman,
Yes.
Ms. Stanio,
Yes.
Ms. Vardaman,
Yes.
Ms. Voorhees.
Yes.
For finance and facilities, I would like to move items 1 through 24.
Second.
Dr. Beatty,
I'm sorry, just one moment. Can I just talk to you for 1 sec? Yeah, how about all three of you?
Never had this happen.
Again, for finance and facilities, we were moving C items 1 through 24.
I had Ms. Vardaman a second. Okay. Dr. Beatty,
Yes.
Ms. Cassel Dunn,
Yes.
Dr. Coleman,
Yes.
Dr. Pixley,
Yes.
Ms. Prus,
Yes.
Dr. Schoolman,
Yes.
Ms. Stanio,
Yes.
Ms. Vardaman,
I'm abstaining on number 11 and yes, otherwise.
okay, Ms. Voorhees,
Yes.
Personnel and communications.
For personnel and communications, I'd like to move items 1 through 26.
Second.
Dr. Beatty,
I am gonna abstain from number 4, given I wasn't in executive session, and say yes for everything else.
Ms. Cassel Dunn,
Yes.
Dr. Coleman,
I'm going to vote no on number 4. I do recognize the concerns that we discussed in personnel and executive, and I did express my concerns. I'm just not at the place right now, even after careful review of what was presented to us, to feel comfortable voting yes. So no on 4 and yes on 1 through 3 and 5 through
Read in at 26.
26. Thank you.
oh, Dr. Pixley,
Yes.
Ms. Prus,
Yes.
Dr. Schoolman,
Yes.
Ms. Stanio,
Yes.
Ms. Vardaman,
Yes.
Ms. Voorhees.
Yes.
Motion carries.
And policy.
Oh, I can move policies 1A through C and 2A through F.
Second.
Dr. Beatty,
Yes.
Ms. Cassel Dunn,
Yes.
Dr. Coleman,
Yes.
Dr. Pixley,
Yes.
Ms. Prus,
Yes.
Dr. Schoolman,
Yes.
Ms. Stanio,
Yes.
Ms. Vardaman,
Yes.
Ms. Voorhees.
Yes.
My place. Okay. Liaison reports. All right, we have our board liaison reports. Does anybody have anything to report? Okay, president's report. It's that time of year. We would like to remind the public that for the November 5th, 2024 elections, we will have 3 board positions available. The school board election candidate kit is available at the NJSBA website, which is njsba.org. The deadline for candidates to submit their nominating position is 4 p.m. July 29th, 2024 at the county clerk's office. The terms that are ending are mine, Marilyn, Bruce, and Monique Coleman. Now we have old business. So one of the things that I think we should clarify is the process by which positions are created and approved and how the timeline affects that.
So for clarification, what we, hello?
Yeah.
Okay. I see the red. I'm not sure what the red means, but hopefully that means I'm on. So for the majority of what we want to do is for job descriptions, we workshop job descriptions in committee, and then we bring them forth for public for review and approval. Once the job description is approved, if we need it, we'll post for the position. So sometimes we approve jobs pending that we might need them. Sometimes it pans out that we do need them, sometimes it doesn't. A really good example was considering a central registration. That was something that was on our radar as something to potentially do. So to consider possibly doing that, we posted for, we had the job description approved. Turns out with the loss of state funding and things like that, unfortunately, we're not going to be able to afford to do that. So we have it on file in the event that it is something that the district wants to do moving forward. We have it on file. Sometimes we have to approve. Thank you. Sometimes we have to approve people or the jobs, sometimes at the same board meeting as we approve job descriptions, just because that is the turnaround of events. So one of the hardest things about running a school district is that all of the decisions that we have to make, the money that we spend, all the decisions that are made, all have to be approved by the 9 people that sit in front of you. And so what happens is that's hard because I still have to run the day-to-day operations of the buildings, same with the administration. So oftentimes, sometimes we're moving and shaking and we need to do something. And sometimes it's a simultaneous approval just because of the nature of how a board meeting lies. Sometimes we have workshop meetings where items aren't voted on and then we have to vote. So it really just depends on timing. We like to keep it structured so that job descriptions are approved ahead of any personnel decisions. However, sometimes it just doesn't work clean like that just because of the nature of having to fill a position, sometimes at the same time as adjusting having a job description. Sometimes we have the job descriptions on there and we approve somebody and then we go back and amend the job description because we have found that there are times where our job descriptions just are slightly antiquated. So we're just trying to quickly fill the position so that we can operate and do what's best for the students in the district, and then having to go back and change it. So it really all depends. So I like to say we follow a clean structure every time, but unfortunately, due to the nature of how the district operates day to day, when our approval comes once a month for things, sometimes it becomes problematic.
And to address some of the after-school questions, when we're talking about the regulations that after-school needs to meet, we are talking about the regulations under a school age program. These regulations are located in the same manual as the childcare regulations. So it's something that we have to read pretty carefully to pull out because they didn't create a school age manual on its own. But it is something that we are working on identifying and making sure that we are still within and still meeting all state mandates. Another thing that we've been discussing is having the focus groups or an advisory council of some sort for after school. To get that parent feedback, not just about the, considering what the needs of the program might be, but also considering the strengths of our parents in the community and having those, integrate into our programming. I think that was what we talked about mostly. Is there anything else for old business?
Yeah, can I just add to that discussion around the after-school program? Can we also clarify and just really make clear the intention of the district to continue to pursue certification for
Yes.
the program?
It is to pursue licensure.
Okay. Yes, licensure. Sorry. Thank you.
Licensure. Yes.
Can I ask Dr. Suska a clarifying question there? Not about the licensure, which I'm also support pursuing, and I'm glad we're doing that. I mean, I know that in committee, we often discuss different positions that are being thought about, or sometimes months, or even years ahead of time. What are our needs, and what kind of person might we need to fill them? What kind of positions do we need to add or subtract? Of course, before we hire somebody, that has to be approved. Okay, we can't start paying anybody money. They don't become an employee before the board has approved their hire. Are there times when the administration posts a description for a job before the board has approved, I guess, that position to be hired for?
Yeah, so we have plenty of circumstances and we've been posted for job descriptions before we've hired those positions.
Well, before the board has had a chance to
Before the board is
review.
approved, does the board have to approve every description before it is posted?
So not necessarily. So sometimes we do post for positions in anticipation of it passing, just because some of the positions we have to get filled, especially if they're mandated positions.
Okay, that makes sense to me. And I want to, and again, I'm new to this business. What I've been here seems like a long time tonight, but it hasn't been that long. But I really do feel like I have been consulted and read in to positions that are being considered and written about. And even if the board, I think, as Dr. Sussman explains, sometimes a position needs to be posted because the hiring cycle is what it is. There's immediate need, but I've never felt like I've seen something on an agenda. Wait a second, we never talked about that in committee. What's going on here? It's always been something we've discussed and debated and had input on, and we'll have input, the ultimate input on, are we going to hire this person? We can choose not to fill that position and not spend that money at all. And I think that's a responsibility we all take really seriously.
Yes, I mean, I would just say, yes, your time on the board has been limited to a few months. It may feel like more, but we have been, unfortunately, and Dr. Sussman did acknowledge that we have been in situations where, as a board, again, a job description was created before we and posted before we had a chance as a board to actually review and approve it. And I understand the nature of the time constraints, but we have been, unfortunately, in that position too, where it's a hire that we may have not had a chance to discuss in committee across committees. And it is a difficult position for us to be in, absolutely. So I'm not going to suggest that what you've experienced the past couple of months is going to be reflective of what you'll experience through your entire tenure, because this may happen to where you are going to be in a position where you're going to feel like, wait, I didn't see this come through before I had a chance to vote on it.
Right.
I'd just like to add something to go along with that. I am on the Facilities and Finance Committee. And when I say we read your emails, we talk about them as well. And the before and after school program has taken up a large amount of our time this year in the Facilities and Finance Committee. We really are, we hear you. We are listening to the concerns. We want to improve the program, and we are working really diligently in order to clarify what is a pretty complex program. And just want you to, like, what we're hearing back from the public is that oftentimes that we're not being responsive. And I am very, very sorry that you feel that way when we are really working very hard to address concerns that are brought to us.
Along those lines, if I could add something else, related to public comment. I know Allison had brought up, I think it was a month or so ago, that I felt really bad hearing tonight that people felt uncomfortable speaking, whether in person or virtually. But Allison had brought up about a month ago or so that you are welcome to submit public comment via email, and we will read it for you. I volunteered to check email right up until the start of the board meeting, and I'd like to ask, even if I can do that, I don't know if I'm allowed, if I could do that right up until the point of public comment. I'm signed in. I'm happy to do that if that's possible. So please do that if you're not comfortable speaking. I am really a terrible public speaker, and I never like doing that. So I would have done it that way if I could have submitted via email and had somebody on the board read it. So please take advantage of that if you feel uncomfortable speaking in public.
Okay, any new business?
Can I say one thing? There've been a bunch more emails this past month about the cell phone issue. And I read all of those too, and it seems like even more parents than I thought and community members are supportive of the idea of, boy, getting those cell phones out of the schools. And a lot of parents would, I think, community members be very grateful if that were to occur. So, and that is another issue we are discussing frequently in committee, and hope to have more to report on that soon.
Thank you. Any other new business? Okay, I move to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.